my god, it's so noisy outside! Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is recmebooks. Today I bring you the Nature Writing Naturally book tag created by Emma from A Cup of Books, who is co-hosting Springathon with Natalie from Curious Reader. As I said last week, I am so excited for this readathon. I've already filmed my TBR, so I will link it down below and in the eye as always, so you can check it out. And I will also link Emma's and Natalie's announcement videos, so you can check those out and find out more. But basically, the Springathon is a nature-focused readathon where you're supposed to read at least one nonfiction nature book, and then the rest can be fiction or nonfiction centered around nature. It has some prompts, it's fabulous. Again, check out all the info. It starts the 4th of May and runs until the 17th. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on to the questions. I think you'll find my answers are a bit atypical, and I'll discuss why in a second, but let's just start. Question number 1. What is your favorite nature writing book or author? I don't think I have a straight up favorite author because there's no author I have read multiple books by, and I feel like you need to have read a bit more work by an author to consider them a favorite. Not all of their body of work, of course, but some more, if that makes sense. Because here's the thing, I've only recently started looking into the nature writing genre in itself. I got into nature writing as sort of a consequence of my love of travel writing and my love for science books. This fascination with nature writing and nature itself has kind of developed in the past 4 years or so, and I have not read as much of the genre as I would want to fully answer this question. The following questions are all recommend a book about, or if you don't have a book specifically for that thing, just recommend 5 nature writing books. I thought that if I can't recommend a book to you, I would talk about books that I want to read and why. Recommend a book about plants. I really want to read Life in the Garden by Penelope Lively. In case you don't know, she is a very famous author. She won the Man Booker with Moon Tiger, which I want to read but haven't yet. Story of My Life, of course, and all of her books have a lot of recognition. This is her memoir because apparently she's an expert gardener and it's like her lifelong hobby. I'm fascinated. I also really want to get to Lab Girl, which is a book everyone's been talking about lately. Yeah, it sounds amazing because it's not only about her work, I think it's also about being a woman in the sciences, and that is something I'm always fascinated by.
So this is Roxy from the future. I am completely aware that this shouldn't keep happening to me, but it somehow still does. And what's funny is that this is one of the videos that I've planned the most, but I completely forgot to talk about Sakura Obsession or Cherry Ingram. I'll put here the cover, it has both titles, but it's a book all about an explorer, I think, or businessman who did all his best to save cherry trees. And I was about to buy this in Seattle so many times and I just didn't do it again because it was kind of chunky. I was trying to prioritize lighter books. I wanted to read this since I found out it was coming out, and I never find out of books before they come out, so this was like a rare exception. That's a book I really want to read on plants.
The next prompt is recommend a book about animals. I would recommend The Soul of an Octopus. You know, it was not my favorite book on the topic, but if you like memoirs and you haven't read a lot of nature writing, I think The Soul of an Octopus is great because more than the science behind the octopus, of course there is some of that, but more than that, it is all about Montgomery's and other characters' relationships with them. Next is a book about water or the sea, and for this I have 2 books I want to read, and one is The Atlantic by Simon Winchester, and the other book that I want to read is The Reef. This is about reefs, about evolutionary history and reefs today, and how actually little we know about them. I think that is why a lot of people are so drawn to oceans and to ocean wildlife. I am not the biggest fan of it, but I am ready to be swayed. What I love about this book is that the tagline is a passionate history. I just love that word. The next question is a book about birds. I already talked about this on my Springathon TBR, but it's still a good reminder. There's still time in case you want to get it, and you can. A Single Swallow by Horacio Clare. This is a story of Horacio Clare's journey following the migration of swallows from England to Africa and back. It not only dwells on swallows and their behavior, but also it talks a lot about politics in Africa and how hard it was to navigate because the borders are so politically charged, and how that is basically the fault of, well, not only the British Empire, but it also touches upon that, which I thought was super interesting. It is not a perfect book. I think the ending is super rushed. You can sense his exhaustion. At the same time, it's such an intense journey that I think it works, and I would urge you to pick up this book. The next prompt is recommend a book about travel, and for that, I want to just urge you to pick up Bill Bryson. It's almost a cliche at this point. Here's the thing. He was the first travel writer I ever read. I read The Lost Continent by him, and it was so good and hilarious, and it gave me an appreciation of traveling and documenting your feelings about travel, not just the things you do, but the observations you make. And it was because of him that I started to keep journals every time I traveled, and this has extended into my daily life. If you don't like his humor, you won't like his books. But if you do like his humor and you get where he's coming from, read everything by him because he's hilarious. And I just can't wait to read all of his books. I also want to recommend The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Matsuo Basho. Basho was one of the most important masters of haiku, which, in case you don't know, is a very short form of Japanese poetry, usually very focused on nature and appreciating the moment. And this is Basho's travel log during one of his journeys. It's so just contemplative and appreciative of the surroundings, and I think it's inspiring and it's perfect for this readathon. You've heard me talk about Elsewhere so many times before. Elsewhere. But yeah, it was one of my favorite books last year. It's one of my favorite travel writing books ever. I'm rereading it, hopefully, for this Springathon. So you'll hear even more about it in my wrap-up. What I think is so interesting, though, is that it's travel writing written from journals and memory. That approach alone makes it worthwhile to check out. Question number 7 is, what nature book in your TBR are you most excited about? It can be on your Springathon TBR or just your general TBR. You can of course check out my Springathon TBR already, so I'll leave that down below. I'm excited for all of those books. But one book that I didn't include on my TBR because I didn't think of it, but then popped up kind of everywhere for me, is The Fossil Hunter by Shelley Emling. Dinosaurs, Evolution, and the Woman Whose Discoveries Changed the World. I picked this up on impulse. I was walking around Strand Bookstore almost ready to check out, and I suddenly saw this at a table, but like it was on the bottom part of the table, but I saw it and I was like, what is this? And then I need to read this. I do expect to be reading this soon, so stay tuned because I will definitely include it in a TBR forthcoming. Question number 8 is, what book are you excited about that you don't have access to yet? I have a lot. The books I would really like to own right now and have for this readathon would be The Reef, Lab Girl, A Walk in the Woods, and The Atlantic. I do own Life in the Garden, but it's not at my apartment right now. I would have loved to read that book for Springathon. It would have been perfect for the planned prom. Question number 9 is, why do you love nature writing? There are two main reasons, I think. On the one hand, I think of it almost as meditation. I studied Japanese aesthetics and philosophy in college with a professor that is actually a practicing Buddhist. She instilled in me a really deep appreciation of nature. I'm also someone whose mind is always operating, so it provides sort of a break from that dread and anxiety, and I love that. Then the other reason, and the reason I am drawn to more sciencey nature writing books, is that I just love to learn, and I am saddened that I will die without knowing absolutely everything that there is to know. But at the same time, I think that gives me a great lifelong project, which is to learn as much as I can about as much as I can, basically. Question number 10 is, describe nature where you live. So in case you don't know, I live in Santiago in Chile. My city is very near the Andes mountain range. We have also two very beautiful hills. And yeah, we have a lot of nature that sadly is not properly taken care of by urban planning and authorities. A lot of parks have been destroyed and have been turned into basically just cement spots, and it's enraging and awful. I feel very blessed because my university campus is gorgeous and has a lot of nature, and that is by design, but all in all, not great with nature. However, if you ever, for some reason, come to Chile after all this situation blows over, hopefully soon, please go to the south. It's just one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. You won't be disappointed. Nature there is just embedded into every road. One of my favorite places in the whole world is a really small town called Frutillar, which is right by the lake. There is a theater, there is a bookstore, there are dozens of wonderful cafes, the food is delicious, and I just love it so much. Then number 11 is do a shout out to another channel that talks about nature writing. I mean, all the channels that I watch that do nature writing, you probably know because they are like very big channels, certainly bigger than my small, tiny, little cozy corner of booktube. So more than a shout out, I just want to recommend you check out Girl Scientists, and of course I'll link her down below, lists of best books of the year. She's, I think, an ornithologist, but she reads across so many different genres and disciplines within science writing, and she compiles these absolutely amazing lists. She's so well read and she has just such an amazing taste. She was the one that brought Lost in Math to my attention, which is one of my favorite books ever now. So I will link the latest one down below so you can check her out, just in case you weren't aware of her. So yeah, I hope you like this tag. I was super excited filming it. It took me a long time to record because things kept occurring. It's done. Let's have a round of applause. Please tell me if you are participating in Springathon and what are you reading? Have you read any of these books? Do you want to recommend me any books? Leave your recs down below. These are a lot of questions. Just comment whatever you want, and see you next time.